On this edition of SFA Now, we're going to take a behind-the-scenes look at a Frontier Ultimate Frisbee team practice, learn the fundamentals of the sport, and get some inside information from team captain Ed Salinas. SFA Now starts now.
Welcome to another episode of SFA Now. I'm your host, Mika Taylor. On today's episode, we're going to get an exclusive insight on SFA's very own Ultimate Frisbee team. I'm here with Ed Salinas, one of the three captains of the Frontier Ultimate team, who will be telling us some information about the team. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio, Ed. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great.
Absolutely. So I have some questions for you, starting with how long have you been playing Ultimate Frisbee and why did you decide to play the sport?
So I started playing Frisbee here at SFA 3 years ago in my freshman year. So this year would be my fourth year. And I wanted to play Ultimate Frisbee because that's what my older brother had done at his college. And me being a little brother, little brother syndrome. I want to do what he did. So That's how I got into Ultimate Frisbee.
Awesome. So is this your first year being a captain for Frontier? And what made you decide that you wanted to take this leadership position for the team?
This is actually my first year being a captain. And what really prompted me to take a step forward and lead the team was I really just wanted to see my team be successful and grow. And I believe that I could, with my knowledge and experience from being on the team for so long, I believe I could do that.
Okay. So how does the Frontier team go about choosing a team captain, especially whenever old team captains leave and graduate?
So usually we have elections, we all vote, and the head captain will pick a new head captain, and the alternate captain positions would be up for whoever wants to run, and the team members would vote on the team captains.
Fantastic. It must have been a weird year to take over this leadership position for the team. How has it been leading a team during the coronavirus since most of the sports are genuinely harder to get into now?
That's a good question. This year has definitely been one of the most unorthodox years we had. Mm-hmm. Part of practice was doing scrimmages all the time. We'd usually, our teammates would be usually engaged. They'd want to come to practice. They want to, scrimmage. However, this year with return to play guides, we're not allowed to scrimmage anymore. So some teammates might not find it as fun as it used to be. One of the greatest challenges is just keeping people motivated, and
Okay, interesting. There might be some people who don't know how the game of Ultimate Frisbee works. Before we go forward learning more about the team, we're going to have another Frontier captain explain some basic rules and how to throw an Ultimate Frisbee.
Hey everyone, I'm Kelsey Newton and I'm out here on the IM fields where we have our Frontier practices every Tuesday from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. and every Wednesday from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And today I'm going to teach y'all some of the basic rules you need to know to play Ultimate Frisbee and some of the basic throws that make playing a lot easier if you know how to throw them. So if you didn't know, Ultimate is a low contact team sport, and you play on a regulation field of 70 by 40 yards with end zones 20 yards deep. And each team can have 7 players on the field at any given time. And so one of the most important rules for Ultimate is that if you have the disc when you're on the field playing, you cannot move at all. You can pivot on one foot, but if you move with the disc, you're gonna have to go back to wherever you were when you were holding that Frisbee. And then another rule that is very important is that you have 10 seconds to throw the Frisbee once your defender starts stalling you. So they're going to say stall 1, stall 2, stall 3, and if they get to 10, then the disc is automatically turned over and becomes their disc, and you would now be on defense. So you have to think really quickly and look at all your options on the field and throw the disc as quickly as possible so you don't hit that stall count. And then a third really important rule is that there's no stripping in Ultimate. So if someone is defending you, they cannot just hit the disc out of your hands. The only time they can hit the disc is once it leaves your hands and is in the air. That's the only time anyone can hit the disc and knock it down to the ground. And now I'm going to teach y'all 3 of the most common throws that make playing a lot easier if you know how to throw them. So the first one is the most common and easiest throw. It's called the backhand. And so what you want to do to throw this is put your 4 fingers on the bottom of the disc and your thumb on the top of the disc, and you are going to pull your arm across your body and let go when the disc is like straight in front of you, and you want to keep it parallel to the ground the entire time. That's what's going to keep it flat as it's traveling to whoever you throw it to. And a helpful tip is to bend your wrist towards your body and snap it as you release. That's what's going to put the spin on the disc and help keep it flat and travel really far to wherever you want to throw it to. And the second most important throw that you should learn how to throw is called the flick or the forehand. So you want to put your 2 fingers on the bottom of the disc like this and your thumb on the top of the disc, and you want to keep your elbow tucked into your body and bend your wrist the opposite way. So bend your wrist away from your body and snap it as you throw it to whoever you're throwing it to. And it is also really important to keep the disc parallel to the ground. Otherwise, it's just not going to go where you want it to go. And this one takes a little more practice and commitment, but once you learn it, it is really helpful in the game because a lot of your opponents will force you flick. And what that means is that they're not going to let you throw a backhand. They are just going to give you the option to throw flick. So it's really important to learn that throw at some point when you start playing. And then the third throw is less common, but it can be really useful in certain situations. It's called the hammer throw. So it's the same position as a flick. You want your 2 fingers on the bottom of the disc and your thumb on the top of the disc. You're gonna hold it behind you with the top of the disc facing the left side of your body, and you're gonna pull that disc across your body like this and let go when it's just a little bit in front of you. And it's really important to keep it tilted as you release it because that's going to help it flatten out in the air and make it really easy for your teammate to catch it. And so this one takes a little practice as well just to get that angle down, but it is a useful throw. So it's really important to learn that at some point as well. So today, this was just the basic rules of Ultimate Frisbee and some basic throws that you need to know how to play. Thanks for watching.
If you're just now joining us, I'm here with Ed Salinas, a captain for the Ultimate Frisbee team, and he's telling us about the team today. In that video, Kelsey taught us some rules and throws that are useful for the game of Ultimate Frisbee. Are there any rules or tips that you would add on to hers to teach somebody who's new to the game of Ultimate Frisbee?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, the backhand and we call it a flick, a forehand, those are the main 2 throws that you really are going to be using throughout Frisbee. And it's important to say not everyone is going to get a flick the first time they throw it. It took me a little while to consistently throw a decent decent flick. And I would say just really stick with it. It's really a lot of practice and a lot of repetition. Mm-hmm. And also, I would say the game is 60% physical and 40% mental. You always have to be thinking during the game, mm-hmm. and definitely think about decisions, making sure you're in the right positions. That obviously comes with time, so I would just say stick with it and keep practicing.
Okay, so piggybacking off of what you said, Kelsey mentioned that most of the time the defense is going to use the force flick. What else could they force if they didn't want to use the force flick?
So on the mark, we call it a mark when you're being guarded and you have the disc. When you have the disc, you're not allowed to move. You're at a standstill. So if they are forcing you to throw a flick, you have to throw a flick. But if they force you backhand, that shifts the entire field. So instead of having the entire right side open, you now have the entire left side open. Or they can also guard you, we call it flat or straight up, where they're directly like more in front of you and they're cutting off more of the angles, putting a little more pressure on you. Those are the different kinds of marks in Frisbee.
All right. Ed mentioned before that leading a team has been more difficult because of the coronavirus. Now we're going to take a look at how this pandemic is affecting the entire team and how practices are different now.
All right, ready? Let's get it.
This year has looked a lot different for the Frontier Ultimate team. Because of the coronavirus, Frontier is limited to what they can actually do at their practices.
In order for us to start practicing this fall, one of the things that we had to do was talk to the sports club supervisor, and we had to submit a plan to return to play guide is what it was called. And in that guide, we had to outline things that we were going to do to safely return to play.
Health and safety are a top priority for students on campus. With this in mind, the team is able to participate in offensive drills, conditioning, partner throwing, and socially distanced scrimmages.
Now that we're able to wear masks and we're able to relax the guidelines just a little bit, we're able to start scrimmaging and doing some of those more intense things. But it's been a lot of just having to condition and focusing on the core fundamentals of the game, like your stamina and your throwing and things like that.
In a normal season, Frontier would be hosting and traveling to tournaments around the nation. Unfortunately, tournaments have been canceled until further notice.
Last year, tournaments were like my favorite part of playing Frisbee. It made all of the practices and all the hard work completely worth it.
Going to tournaments is fun. I'm really sad we can't go anymore. 'Cause, you know, that's where you bond with your teammates, you get close with them.
Even though Frontier can't currently compete against other schools, the team is taking advantage of their opportunities to build chemistry and bond with one another.
Tonight we're able to come out here and we're still able to practice and be with each other, and while we're not able to go out and compete against other schools, at least we're still able to get this little practice that we can with each other and maintain that social aspect.
As the team continues to practice, they are optimistic they will be able to go to tournaments in the spring.
I'm super excited for next semester because I know that when we're out here, we're working hard and we're practicing hard. So all of that work is going to transfer over to the next semester for tournaments.
As Frontier works together to get through the pandemic safely, they look forward with great anticipation to a fun and spirited season. Thanks for watching.
Frontier on 7! 1, 2, 7! Frontier!
While I was watching that video, I noticed that in some shots, you guys would line up spaced out and the person in the back would run up to the front. Can you tell us about those positions and if there are different things that certain players do in a game?
Right. So that's called the vertical stack. We call it vert stack. That's one of our main offenses we run. So basically, everyone's in a single file line. There's usually 7 people on a field. You'll have 5 cutters, and in vert stack we'll have 2 handlers, 2 people in the back throwing the disc. So what the cutters do, if you're in the 5 position, you cut down to the open side. If you're being force flick, we call that open, and that's usually how it goes. If the number 5 person is open, they'll get the throw from the handler, they'll catch the disc, we'll move up. However, if they get looked off, they'll have to come back to the stack to the 2 position, and in the vert stack, it's important that everyone stays aware because it's a continuously running offense. It's not play by play, it's just continuous motion. So you need to be really looking where you're at, where you're on the field.
All right. Thank you, Ed. That's all the time we have for today. If you're interested in joining SFA's Frontier team, you can contact their president, Logan Whittoyle, at the email below. Thank you so much for joining us, Ed. And thank you all for tuning into this episode of SFA Now. I'm your host, Mika Taylor, and we will see you next time.